You've come to the right place. If you're a course creator looking to build more impact, income, and freedom, LMS Cast is the #1 podcast for course creators just like you. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I'm the co-founder of the most powerful tool for building, selling, and protecting engaging online courses called Lifter LMS. Enjoy the show. Hello and welcome back to another episode of LMS Cast. I'm joined by a special guest, Cliff Griffin. He's from Checkout for WooCommerce. You can find that at checkoutwc.com. Welcome to the show, Cliff.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I'm really excited to talk about with WooCommerce with you and just e-commerce, conversion optimization in general. It's really important to the course building and the membership community, the e-commerce community, which is the majority of our listeners here. How do you describe Checkout for WooCommerce? Like, how do you position it?
Sure. Well, Checkout for WooCommerce is basically a drop-in solution that completely takes over the checkout page. So if you've ever set up a WooCommerce site, you know that the checkout page is pretty generic and it's extremely functional, it's robust, but it is pretty mediocre maybe from a design standpoint, especially depending on the theme you're using. So the backstory is that we basically saw a need for better e-commerce experiences, and we had built a few of those for some other e-commerce plugins. And about 3 years ago, we decided this could be solved for many people with one plugin instead of all these bespoke experiences that we're building. So that's kind of our main goal is install it, activate it, and you're already, way better than where you were.
What do you like about Shopify? Like, where is Shopify, before you've built this product, where was Shopify winning over like a WooCommerce experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. Shopify takes a really hard problem. So I used to say, there's no standard e-commerce experience. Every store has something that wasn't anticipated. But what they've done is kind of force people into, in a good way, a really good tested e-commerce flow. So you have lots of control over the theme, but their product pages work really well, they convert really well, and their cart and checkout experiences are just consistently delivered to, I think, millions of stores. May not be quite a million yet, but because of that, they take away a lot of that uncertainty where I picked a WordPress theme and are these experiences going to be good, and I think that's really appealing to a lot of merchants. They just want to sell their stuff. They want it to look good, and they've kind of mastered that. And that's a monumental problem. I would have never been crazy enough to try it, but it seems to be working really well for them.
Right on. So is Checkout for WooCommerce a plugin or a theme?
It's a plugin. And this is the nomenclature gets a little bit sticky because of the semantics around themes. So we try to use the word template.
Okay.
Maybe it's a little bit clearer. So Checkout for WooCommerce actually contains 3 separate templates. The actual flow of how you go through the fields is extremely similar between them. But it gives people just stylistically 3 starting places to match up with their preferences. And it's really a total theme takeover. So what we're doing is, and I don't want to get too technical, but when WordPress is loading a page, it gets to a hook called template redirect. And this is where the theme decides which page template to send to the user. And so we actually jump in right there. And we say, actually, we're going to load our stuff right here. So we don't even load like the base HTML or the greater theme context from your WordPress theme. It's completely our stuff at that point. So we minimize a lot of those conflicts. When a WordPress theme just loads crazy stuff that can just break things, none of that stuff's going to happen in our template. So it's kind of a sandbox in that sense.
So Checkout for WooCommerce could literally work with any WordPress theme. You just
Yeah,
add it
I
to
mean,
your site.
there are instances where we have to work around stuff. A lot of times the theme has like a separate add-on plugin, and that add-on plugin doesn't know what to do unless the regular theme stuff is there. But most of that stuff is really simple. So we only have like 5 or 6 of those workarounds.
Well, at Lifter LMS, the way I say that is Lifter LMS works with any well-coded WordPress theme. So it's
Yeah,
not, I can't say everything because there's always
yeah.
something out there. And
We went out of the gate really aggressive, and we were like, it works with every theme, and we were being like super strong arm, like we're not going to load the themes style sheets and JavaScript files and all that stuff. And then that just became more of a headache than it was like a value. So as we were able to improve the code base, we said, okay, we're going to go ahead and let these things play more nicely together. But really on the theme side, it's still pretty, we try to keep them at bay. We don't need their stuff on our theme template. Sorry.
could you speak to some of the elements of checkout for WooCommerce that contribute to a more conversion optimized design or experience?
Yeah. So the main kind of conceptual flow, and you'll notice it really resembles Shopify. That's not on accident. We said, hey, they're doing this on 1 million stores. We personally love this flow. We talked to everybody we talked to says, man, yeah, they do such a good job with checkout. But the idea is that you keep your user in a domain of knowledge, a single domain of knowledge at a time. And you structure the sequence so that you have the information you need at the right time. So for instance, in our checkout themes, templates, we have 3 tabs. The first tab is called customer information, and that's where the user enters their shipping address. And when they do that, now we have enough information to estimate their shipping. So the second tab allows them to pick their shipping method. And then the third tab is where they specify their payment and billing information. So when people stay in a single context, a single domain of knowledge, it's easier for them to complete forms because they're not having to sort of switch gears and, oh, what was my credit card information? Oh, what did I pick for shipping? We're taking you in a logical sequence. Beyond that, what we do is we try to automate everything that we can. And this is something that I think is kind of a unique advantage that we have right now. I don't anticipate we'll get this advantage for very long because I think some of these things are pretty easy to do. But for instance, a personal pain that I've had is that when I'm buying at a store that I know I've ordered at before, but I don't order frequently, I don't remember if I have an account. And a lot of stores can be really aggressive about trying to force you to log into your account or remember these things. And so what you'll do is you'll say, no, I didn't sign up for an account. And you'll fill out the form and you'll say, submit my order. And they say, you have an account. You need to log in. Error message.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I don't know the password. It's not in my password manager, and it must predate my password manager. So now I'm trying to guess passwords. I'm waiting on reset password notifications, et cetera. So what we did is try to cut all that out. So as soon as you enter your email address, we immediately look up to see if you have an account. And if you do, we drop down the password field. And now you have a login button and you can enter it right there.
Wow.
If you don't have an account, we automatically check the box to create an account because most merchants want their users creating accounts if possible. It's easier for the user because now they have a single place to go look at all their orders. But the most important thing is sticking with that principle of we don't want any friction between the user and a successful order, is that we override and basically allow every order to go through as a guest order, with the exception being if it's a subscription product, we can't do that, obviously. So they can always order regardless, but we automatically show them if they have a account and kind of give them a leg up on that memory work. And then beyond that, like another automation that's kind of super easy to do, more people should do it, I'm glad they don't right now, is that it's not hard to find someone's city and state in most cases, especially in the US, with their postcode. So unlike most order forms are structured where it's you put in your country or you put in your city, state, country, zip. That's kind of that's how it's on the envelope, and so that's how they order it. We do country, zip, and then we automatically immediately fill in your city and state if we can find it. There's some really weird stuff on that. You can't do it in every country because, believe it or not, like post offices in different countries actually copyright that information. And to actually store a complete list of these postal codes match up with these cities and states is a copyright violation. So, but you can do it in the US, and you can do it in a lot of other countries too. So it's just, I get mad now when I'm using a normal, even Amazon, it's like, just, this information. Don't make me, fill out 3 fields when I could fill out, 1.
That's awesome. I mean, I literally, like, there was a company that lost a, $80 pair of jeans sale that I was trying to complete. I had bought them there like 4 years ago before my password manager. And like, I went through it. I'm like, all right, which email did I use? And I finally was like, forget it. I can't, I'm just trying to buy it, and it wouldn't let me buy it. And I'm like, that's a bad user experience.
Yeah. It's, e-commerce is complicated. It's hard, like I said earlier. So I get why a lot of these things end up so poorly, especially when it's designed by committee and you have all these like lesser business goals that end up sort of taking over the whole experience, and a lesser business goal could be like, we want everyone to have an account. And sometimes the exact wrong answer fills in, which is, well, we just won't let them purchase unless they can remember their account information, But making money should be your real goal. So it's just, it's like a Pyrrhic victory. You won the battle, you lost the war.
Yeah. Well, this is really interesting. And I was just pulling some numbers. I think you said Shopify had something around 1 million stores.
Yeah, I wanted to say it was over 1 million, but then I had a memory that maybe they were still in search of that.
Well, I saw 500,000 active stores as a recent stat. But I went to WooCommerce, and there are over 4 million installs of WooCommerce, which is really amazing to me. Just how big the WooCommerce ecosystem is. And I've used WooCommerce for a very long time, probably a decade. And the interface, it was always like lagging behind the hosted solutions. Mm-hmm. But again, that's the beauty of like WordPress and the ecosystem, is you could come in and you could focus exclusively on this experience and build on top of that and optimize it. I mean, I'm sure WooCommerce is just scrambling to keep it all together and not lose anybody's money and whatever. The design is not their top priority. And experience.
It's really hard for them to fix because they have this technical debt, of this. These templates have worked a certain way for 10 years, and so if you pull out the rug, from underneath everybody, you're potentially disrupting 4 million stores. So they have to be really careful. I do think that they will eventually address this stuff, but I do think it's also good that they have sort of left this large area for themes and plugins to improve.
Yeah, that's a great point. And if you look at themes who do design in general, there are some WooCommerce specific themes out there, but not every theme gives attention to WooCommerce. I mean, it gets more attention than a lot of other plugins because it has a large user base. But when you see plain Jane WooCommerce and the purple buttons and everything, it's not bad, but it looks a little out of place with the theme usually.
Themes have to be the hardest development of all the kind of WordPress ecosystem products. Themes have to be the absolute worst in terms of the sheer amount of exposure you have to niche problems. And I think that e-commerce is just doubling the size of that. When you really get down to it, there's so many things you have to be careful of in e-commerce. And so we've actually had a couple of pretty major themes you probably would have heard of reach out and kind of, approach us on whether we wanted to be acquired and things like that. Because I think themes are looking for solutions to not have to deal with this probably pain point in their ecosystem of they're constantly having to fix issues on their unique, checkout flow. And that's not really their main business.
Can you speak to some of the plugins that it says that checkout for WooCommerce works with the plugins you love, like PayPal or Stripe, Woo subscriptions. Like, what does your checkout do in relation to those things? Does it just know
Yeah.
which fields are coming because of them and it's ready for them?
Yeah, we need to update that list for sure. That was kind of what we launched with, but this is the hardest problem that we sort of carved out because we're so opinionated about how the experience should work.
Yeah.
That put us at odds with a lot of the defaults of how WooCommerce usually handles the template.
Okay.
A good example of that is in our flow, like I said, the shipping fields come first. And then on the payment gateway or the payment method screen, you have a toggle that says, use my shipping address, as the billing address or specify a different billing address. Well, that's the exact opposite of how WooCommerce does it. But the problem is it's kind of the opposite and also different. You can't just say, well, just mean the opposite of that flag that WooCommerce already has, because it doesn't really mean the opposite of that exactly. So what we have to do, and also, there's all these hooks throughout the template. Well, we can't really add parity for all those hooks because the hooks just mean different things because of the context around them. So if there's a hook that's like before billing details, that means before billing details, but it also probably means something else specific to how the WooCommerce checkout's laid out, which is we want it at the top of the screen. And it wouldn't be at the top of the screen in our flow. So, we couldn't just add all those hooks that already exist. We added as many as we could, and it's been a process of experimentation. Like, let's add a hook, launch it, see how many unintended consequences there are, and then we have to deal with those. So we're trying to basically synthesize this functionality. And so most of the time it's pretty easy. So we take a plugin and they output a field on the page. And when the user installs it, like, hey, this field's not there. And so we just take a look at the plugin, we see, oh, they're outputting on this hook. And we basically just add that same function on our own hook and problem solved. Most of our compatibility, we separate them out into classes. Usually they're like 15 lines, which is really just mostly scaffolding. So there are edge cases that take a lot more work. Sometimes we even have to pull in JavaScript, but it's all about our commitment to the design first.
Yeah.
We don't want to just have sort of an average mediocre implementation of anything we add. We want to make sure that it fits the whole ecosystem, and so that does create problems. So one of the things we do if you have Stripe is you can have an Apple Pay button and a Google Pay button, things like that. But we want all those buttons to look the same.
Yeah.
So now we use PayPal for WooCommerce, which is a fantastic PayPal gateway. It's free. And they do a really good job with the smart button. But what they can't control is the fact that PayPal puts all their smart buttons in one iframe. And so now you have this problem, do we want them all to look the same, or do we want all the buttons to be able to show up? So currently what we recommend is people just turn on only one of those buttons, and that allows us to make them look all the same height and same width, things like that. But we're just constantly sort of grading against this. We want the experience to be extremely high level. And so we don't want to compromise that by just throwing everything that, can be thrown into that area of the screen, because a lot of those defaults are pretty bad. It's pay faster and advertisements, basically. Billboards. And we don't want that stuff. We want to just have an area that has payment request buttons that are a faster way to check out.
Yeah, well, that's awesome. And that shows a lot of maturity and advanced design opinion, because it's all about, on the far side of design, it's about minimalism and taking things away and unification. Yeah. That's really cool. And I find when it comes to things like e-commerce or business models or design, especially e-commerce where we're kind of product focused, or LMS where we're kind of learning focused, it's let's keep it minimal and keep the focus on the product or the course and not get too carried away with things that don't really matter that much in the grand scheme of things. Having a nice WooCommerce checkout with Woo subscriptions clean checkout. That's really what you want.
Yeah.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, it's a constant dance. We think that we've heard of every, WooCommerce plugin, known to man, and then, we'll get 5 integration requests in a week, and so it's just, sometimes we have to say no, like that just doesn't work with our flow, we've had requests to have like the multiple shipping addresses where you can drag cart items into buckets for shipping addresses. And like I'm sure that's useful for someone, but it's just, that's not, we can't please everyone. We can't be a solution that works for absolutely every single WooCommerce store, but we want to hit like that 80% mark, So if you have a really niche thing, we may not be right for you, and we'll tell you that. We're not going to just try to jam it in there and compromise the whole design to make it work.
Yeah, there's I've just come across a lot with WooCommerce, and there are a lot of edge cases. If you go to WooCommerce extensions, and even these are just the ones that WooCommerce itself promotes and puts out there, not necessarily made by them. And there's a lot more after that. There's so many edge cases like, well, buy a gift for somebody else, or name your price, or all these
it's
things.
Infinite.
Yeah,
it's amazing and terrifying.
Well, that actually leads to my next question. What do you love about WooCommerce?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing I love about WooCommerce is just because there's 4 million people all contributing by using it. There's just an amazing ecosystem around it. So you think of any problem, and it's more likely that someone else has solved it at scale. They've developed a product that people are using, or being updated than not. In the past, when I've used smaller e-commerce plugins, you're just constantly custom building modules, so in a recent store we built, for example, they wanted to have all their variations show up as single products in the grid. It looked too small when they have like 3 products, but each of those products have like 20 variations, and they wanted it to be able to show it all up, like the normal shopping grid. Well, there's a plugin. It does it. It's great, and it, hides the initial product and just shows the variants. They all look like fully qualified products, and then you click on one, it auto selects that variation. And that's just stuff you won't get unless you have this massive audience of potential stores where all these niche problems aren't just affecting a few people. There's literally 10,000 stores that need it, the downside is that, like you said, there's so many integrations and there's a lot of technical debt. So there's areas of WooCommerce that I really would love them to improve. Like the order statuses are kind of nebulous, what they mean. They don't have separate statuses for payment statuses and shipping status. So, if an order is complete, usually that means, well, it was paid for. Well, what if it's being shipped in 3 different boxes? How can I, at a glance, know that 2 of the 3 boxes are away and we still need to ship the 3rd, So I think there's areas that it can kind of grow up and become more of an enterprise solution over time. I think it does work for enterprises, but I think there are certain areas where, like the accounting and the way that statuses are tracked could be improved and really make it a better solution for some of these high-level large stores that need really, really discrete tracking for different things.
Yeah, that's awesome. I just want to note for you out there that's listening, if you've heard of Lifter LMS, we have our own simple Stripe and PayPal checkout, but a lot of our community uses WooCommerce to check out, and I want to explain the reasons why they would do that. And if you are going to do that, I'd encourage you to go to checkoutwc.com and see what your checkout could look like using WooCommerce. So if I'm thinking of like some of our customers who already have a WooCommerce store. They have products like photography, maybe coaching packages, maybe physical goods and equipment. I'm thinking of one person in particular who teaches a certain kind of weaving, and she sells all these other like fabrics and things to create the weavings. It's just a full-on WooCommerce experience, and she just wanted to add courses and memberships and things like that later. So that's a reason to use Lifter with WooCommerce. If you want an advanced, like another add-on that WooCommerce makes, like if you're falling in love with checkout for WooCommerce, that's a great reason to use it. If design and conversion optimized checkout is important for you, perhaps you're maybe even coming from Shopify and you want it to look like what you're used to. That's another good reason. But WooCommerce is fantastic. I personally use it for selling software. I love the we had to build our own licensing system, but we use Woo subscriptions. I use something called Metoric, where I get extra reporting, which is awesome.
Yeah,
I love that. It's a very powerful tool. And just the community around it. Like Cliff here, there's all these great people working on these specific problems within WooCommerce. We mentioned Metoric. Bryce, the guy behind that,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he has some cart abandonment stuff that is working amazing with that, but that's not part of WooCommerce Core. We added that through that system, and I think this is really beautiful what you have here, because it is frustrating when somebody's trying to buy. Like, I love that idea of enter your zip code, and it shouldn't it just know?
Yeah.
And I learned something new from you, because it is a hard problem, and we get that request a lot with our checkout. And then, there's all these different countries, and I didn't realize all the nuances around the copyright or whatever of the zip code.
It's crazy. Yeah.
Making it simple is not easy. And WooCommerce by default, when it loads up the 2 columns and everything's exposed all at once, it's a little bit, overwhelming as someone's checking out.
Yeah. And something we're going to be releasing soon is an add-on. And I think there are some plugins out there that do this, but we think we can address it very specifically for our audience, is like a full address autocomplete from Google Maps. So
how's that work?
One of the nice things is that their algorithm geolocates you. So it says when you're entering this address, 100 Main Street, you don't mean all main streets. You mean probably this one near your where you are right now.
Oh, wow.
And so it can really speed up the process and then you're filling in street address 1, 2, country, city, state in one go. So that's something we're going to be releasing soon to just try to further short circuit the process of having to make decisions and think of things when you're going through a checkout flow. That's
very cool. Now, when you said 3 templates, I believe, were you talking about like 3 different styles, or like the cart, the checkout, and the
Right. So right now we only deal with the checkout page.
Okay.
We have 3 templates that have 3 kind of takes on the overall sort of design of.
Could you describe how those are different? Like what?
Yeah. So,
it's hard to, I know we're on a podcast here, so go to checkoutwc.com and look at it, but people have design opinions. So I'm sure they're like 3 different, they're different. What are they?
Yeah. So our default theme is, the flow is very inspired by Shopify in all cases, but the default theme is pretty stripped down. It's a white background. There's not, like the cart area on the right is like a sidebar that's also got a white background. It's just very understated. And then we have a theme that's called Copify, which is obviously a very close clone of Shopify. Because what we thought when we launched, people who want it to just look like Shopify, they'll be happy with the default theme. They weren't. They said, okay, this looks great. But here's 10 things that can make it look exactly like Shopify. Like, okay, we get the message. You literally want it to just look like Shopify, and we can accommodate that. And then we have a theme called Futurist, which is kind of uses like a Futura style. Like it has breadcrumb dots and just different styling of elements that's just slightly different. It's really the same basic guts, but a lot of people love that theme, and it just it sets things apart a little bit differently. So we'll probably add more in the future, but right now it seems to be a good place. No matter where your aesthetic preferences lie, you can start with one of these, and of course, you can always modify it if you want to.
Yeah, and you can try those out for free. over at checkoutwc.com. Thank you so much for doing the show with us, Cliff. Is there anything else for people to look at, or where you want to send them to find out more?
Well, I was going to say, I'm going to create a discount code called Lifter. So if your audience wants to try it out for a 7-day free trial for everybody, but if they want a 10% off,
cool.
They can use discount code Lifter when they're checking out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for that. And this is amazing. I'm really excited about it. And I hear people talking about they just want smooth checkout. And I'm really glad you're working on this problem, and it looks beautiful. So thanks so much. I really appreciate it. And thanks for the generous coupon. Well,
thanks so much for having me on. It was great.
And that's a wrap for this episode of LMS Cast. I'm your guide, Chris Badgett. I hope you enjoyed the show. This show was brought to you by Lifter LMS, the #1 tool for creating, selling, and protecting engaging online courses to help you get more revenue, freedom, and impact in your life. Head on over to lifterlms.com and get the best gear for your course creator journey. Let's build the most engaging, results-getting courses on the internet.